What happens when art meets function? In the case of custom craftsmen Matt Jones and Dave Root, the results are some pretty remarkable creations. When we come back, we'll visit Struct, Restruct, and some of the designers of Esquina. I'm Lori Carson, and this is Home and Away.
I think first it starts with just woodworker. We use other materials, but that's kind of where things start for me. So,
seeing people appreciate what we do and being overwhelmed with the joy that they feel from our unique ideas brings me the most satisfaction.
No matter how much you plan a design, there's always going to be an element that you can't visualize. And so I think the drive to actually see something complete and realize some of those details and those surprises are also a drive to try to keep it interesting. I'm Matt Jones.
And I'm Eric J. We are Struct, Restruct. You know, we've known each other for quite some time. We went to preschool together. We actually grew up 3 or 4 blocks from each other. Spent a lot of time together as kids getting into trouble.
We do remodeling, restoration of architecture, architectural detail, furniture. Our emphasis is on wood, but you know, since we do have design services, we incorporate other materials, but when it's involved with wood, we usually do that work ourselves. No, I got my degree in industrial design from KU. I think initially I never found a place that I thought I'd be comfortable working, and you know, so I guess I just took a chance that I could maybe be a woodworker. And so, you know, I started out pretty small and just spending a lot of time making pieces, mainly to show, and that kind of led to some jobs.
Well, when I was in Telluride, I was designing mainly second homes and for movie stars and CEOs and people like that. My wife and I always knew that we kind of wanted to end up back in Kansas, and fortunately there was kind of an opportunity here in Lawrence with Matt having a business here and just how things kind of were falling back into place.
Tell us about the work at Esquina.
Yeah, that started out as a real fast-paced project. Robert Krause needed some drawings as fast as possible, so Robert had an idea of how he wanted the project to flow, as far as it being a non-weighted, you know, like there's not a wait staff that serves people, so people travel through that space from the entry down an ordering line to an ordering station, and then kind of flow out into the actual dining space.
And so that's where we did the spalted sycamore bar, kind of the rain screen type. The wood that's used there is kind of an anomaly in a way, because it's hard to come up with material that is that well spalted. And spalting is really an early stage of decay. So it has all these black streaks running through it, which are actually the runs of fungus going into the wood. And so, I mean, when we're looking at wood, we're always looking for what characteristics make it unusual or unique, and so there are all different ways of cutting the wood to hit the grain differently. Yeah, and to me, that whole design was, the most interesting part was the material. Sometimes you have say a stack of materials or a single board that when you look at it, you know that there's something there. And so I guess we try to mate the right projects with the materials. And I think having something on hand to start with I think it works easier than going to try and find what you're looking for, because if you can be inspired by the piece in the beginning, then, you know, I think if we're accentuating the natural facts of the material, then, you know, that takes our design a long way.
Let's talk about some work you did on Delaware Street. You've done a lot of work down there, actually, but there's a stairway in the house that I know you're particularly proud of. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that stairway is made of some of the first lumber that I milled, and I work with tree service people and as a groundsman to get logs. And so then I collect logs and get them milled. And then we sticker up the boards and dry them, and we don't have a kiln, so it takes a year per inch to dry. But those were some of the first boards I ever milled, and it's walnut. And they were milled so that the sapwood was still attached to the walnut, which is, in walnut it's kind of a white, whereas the walnut's really dark. And so the sapwood is incorporated as part of the design, and it creates kind of a rhythm and a pattern, as well as accentuate the grain. It places kind of the wavy lines of a grain next to the straight cut lines of the form. Usually you wouldn't see walnut that still has that in it. And a lot of the time when walnut's commercially dried, they actually steam it so that this color bleeds into that color, so they get higher yield. To me, though, that's one of the most interesting things about walnut, is that contrast between the heartwood and the sapwood. Yeah. The dining set for Robert and Molly Krause was one of the first things I did for them. They actually had chairs already, but they wanted a table that would kind of match it. And so the table's based off of that chair. And in fact, there's cabinetry in that room, freestanding furniture for wine storage and other things. But so they're all kind of in the same style. All the pieces that I actually have at my house were for sale at one time and in a gallery, and I'm at this point glad they didn't sell, because now I couldn't invest so easily the amount of time that these pieces took, because I was really investing in showing the work. So this was for me just an exploration, and time wasn't necessarily the element that mattered.
Understood. So. Do you remember the first piece you ever made?
Well, the coffee table was the first furniture piece I ever made, and then the next piece after that was a single dining room chair. And then I think maybe the next piece after that was a really time-consuming bent laminate love seat and chair set that there's nothing square on it, and it's layers of 1/8" plies that are built over forms and vacuumed down till they are rigid and glued up. And the legs on this piece are curved as well, so I started out with a kind of curved form that I put all these laminates down, and each laminate is tapered so that this leg is thicker in the middle and thinner at the ends, and then that piece is joined onto another curve. So that was really just a challenge in developing skill, but maybe really impractical in the real world, just because of the amount of time. But
how much attachment do you get to your work? I mean, I would think an artist sometimes has pieces that are hard to part with. Does that happen to you?
To those early pieces for sure, but usually when I start out with a project knowing that it's not mine, the attachment's not there as much. I mean, other than wanting to make it interesting and something that I feel confident and proud of. So. Ideas come along a lot of the time just through observation. I mean, if you're paying attention to what's happening, an idea arises out of that. And so you, in a sense, just have to be ready for an idea. Those ideas are a little bit vague, so you may have some sense of what you want to try to create, but then you do have to sit down and figure out the nuts and bolts, and that's maybe where you actually have to sit down and make the design come together. But I think the ideas are something that come just naturally by spending time working on things.
And we just, and I'll bring up an example just that happened the other day on one of our current projects. It was designed a certain way, and we were on site and just started thinking about other ideas about how something could be done, and it's just it's kind of like a racquetball against a wall. You know, it's just we're bouncing ideas off of each other, and the client trying to figure out multiple ways of doing something as well as we can.
I do really like working with other people and our bigger projects, and I think our crew is just fantastic, and all the guys that I work with are so much fun, as well as the clients. I mean, and those sides can be challenging too, but so I really enjoy the quiet side, contemplative side, and being alone with the wood, and also just the collaborative side of working with other people. So.
Where do you see your niche in this community of builders?
I think first is just unique design. I think there's other people who are also doing that kind of work, you know, and then going into the materials, our collection of materials, and I mean that's one of the things that helps lead our design. But you know, and going into the materials really makes me think about place a lot too, because you know, a lot of the time we're milling logs that come from trees in town, and when I see the material, the wood, and it's kind of a reflection of the landscape. So I see, you know, the things we're making in materials describing the place where we're at. And almost all of our work has always been here in Lawrence. And I think that some of the design, the form that we come up with, maybe is also reflective of kind of the arts and just, you know, the ability for new ideas to be accepted. So I think that Lawrence is a unique place, and that some of the things we do are a reflection of that place.
A concrete sculptor, a furniture maker, and the creator of the Star Bar at Pachamama's, Dave Root, joins us next.
I've always just had an affinity to picking up tools and doing something with a piece of material. When I was young, like most kids, boys, like to put nails into wood and squeeze things with pliers and cut things with saws, and it just went from there. It goes back, my grandfather that's how he made a living, starting from a young age. He worked for Roosevelt in the Civilian Conservation Corps. You have a lot of influences and a lot of different things you want to do. It can seem kind of adventurous. I'm Dave Root, and I'm a sculptor. You know, coming out of school, high school, I went straight into ceramics. And I had that idea in mind going into college and completed it, but I think when I was younger, science always appealed to me. I think it's encompassing a tradition that's not well known in this country, but it's been going on for as long as concrete has been going on. The Pantheon in Rome is made of concrete. You know, the Hoover Dam, there's railings that you see driving down any highway in America. You see them, the arched concrete railings on the bridges. Just a way to use a product that it's out there, but it's not very, people don't notice it. Not only is it heavy, you've got to move quickly. The forms have to be strong. You have to be able to take them apart. That's a key component to making a lot of these things, because the forms have to be able to release from it in a way that you're not going to break the concrete or have to cut your forms if you're going to reuse them.
So taking something like a countertop or a bar surface and infusing fiber optics into a concrete form, that's a pretty revolutionary idea.
Well, I don't think it's that revolutionary. I've seen some claims to people who said they've invented it, but I kind of liken it to claiming to have invented the sandwich.